Did you know that every year during the holiday season, the Butterball Turkey Company sets up a telephone hotline to answer consumer questions about preparing holiday turkeys? It's true. Well, a couple of years ago, so sources within the company relate, a woman called to inquire about cooking a turkey that had been in the bottom of her freezer for 23 years. The Butterball representative told the woman that the turkey would probably be safe to eat if the freezer had been kept below zero for the entire 23 years. However, the representative warned her that even if the turkey was safe to eat, the flavor would probably have deteriorated to such a degree that she would not recommend eating it, that it would be terrible. To which the caller replied, and I quote, "That's what I figured. So I'll just give the turkey to the food pantry at our church to give to some poor person, and I'll buy myself a new one," reflected the Butterball representative later. I couldn't help thinking, why don't you buy a new turkey for the poor person and keep the old one for yourself, you selfish jerk? Even more, I couldn't help but think about how much joy, the joy of blessing somebody else's life, this person was missing out on by choosing not to give her very best. Missing out on life's richest blessings due to being more about getting than giving. A noted preacher writes, "The Bible tells us that it is more blessed to give than to receive. But in common practice, it seems that most of us would much rather let the other guy have the blessing." It's true, isn't it? How often do we talk about the joy of giving, speak glowingly of the noble ideal of generosity, but in actual practice we live just the opposite. We seek far more to get than to give. And as a result, how much blessing are we missing out on? The great Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." Giving is the central issue in the lives we experience. As Christians, we proclaim a faith that has as its very core an act of profound giving, God's self-giving to us in Jesus Christ, crucified and risen. Giving is, by definition, what we are all about. Upon this, everything we believe rises or falls. And so this is what I'd like to talk about this morning as we pause to give thanks for God's gifts to us and prepare to consecrate our gifts in return. I'd like to talk a little bit about giving, specifically how to grow in generosity that we might discover life's richest blessing. Our scripture reading this morning is a scene that some refer to as the gospel in miniature. In effect, this one very brief passage we see played out the whole journey of salvation. Notice what takes place here. Guests have gathered for this dinner party with Jesus. It's a very special night. He's the latest celebrity in town. Last week it was the Kardashians. It's Jesus, This is the hot ticket to have. It's an A-list party when suddenly the evening is ruined. This incredibly uninvited individual breaks in on the festivities. Now, the woman's name is not given, but what is made clear is just what kind of a woman she is. She's a sinner, we're told. Her sin is not identified, but it's almost as if the specifics don't matter, All that matters is that everyone in town seems to know all about her. Now understand, her arrival at this soiree is a major breach of the social customs and even some of the outright laws of the times. First, to break into a party that you've not been invited to. Then, as a woman, to have contact with any man that is not your husband. And finally, a sinner keeping company with good, righteous people. She shouldn't be here, But it seems she can't keep herself away. We don't know how she has found out about Jesus. We don't know what she's heard. We don't know what she's seen. We don't know what she's been told. It doesn't even seem as if Jesus and this woman have ever even met before. All we do know is that obviously something of Jesus' message, of who he is and what he's about, most especially his overriding message of love and forgiveness, has grabbed hold of this woman big time, and so she has burst in on this gathering with only one objective in mind: to get her sinful life to Jesus. She doesn't care about the party. She doesn't care about what other people think. She doesn't care if she gets into trouble. She's just got to get to Jesus. Seeing him, she drops to the floor at his feet and she begins to cry. She cries so much that her tears actually wash Jesus' feet. I'm reminded of the old saying, that tears are liquid prayer. Have you ever cried that much? Caring nothing about her appearance, with her hair she then dries Jesus' feet. And finally, taking some perfumed ointment, a very costly gift, a great extravagance, she anoints Jesus, the gift of beauty and devotion. Consider what we have been presented with thus far. A sinner who has just heard about Jesus decides, against all odds, against all obstacles, against all reason, to bring her broken life to him, giving to him her heart, her service, and her possessions. And what happens? Well, in a preview of virtually every church gathering ever since, some in the room begin to grumble. Right? Who cares about this other person's salvation? She has interrupted my personal experience of Jesus. Most notably, the host for the evening, Simon, he begins to complain. So Jesus tells a little story about money. And don't you just hate it when the preacher chooses that for a topic? Well, the story? Two people who owed some money, one more, one less, each being forgiven of their debt. The question being, who will be more grateful? Who will love the person who forgave their debt more? And the answer Simon rightly gives, being the one who knows himself forgiven more. And this then leading Jesus into his application. Jesus compares and contrasts Simon and the woman. His point? Simon, though seemingly closer to God than the woman, is actually much more distant because, seeing no need of God's mercy, he has no love in his heart, and thus he is not really alive. And how does Jesus know that this is the case? Because Simon gives nothing. Notice Jesus' repeated line in the text. He says, Simon, I entered your house, and you gave me no water. You gave me no kiss. Simon, you gave me nothing. But she has done nothing but give. As it is rightly said, you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. The woman knows how much she has been loved and is giving in return, and thus life in abundance is hers. The rest are just left with their own nasty, angry, bitter, complaining hearts. And that's the punchline to the whole thing. Simon and the others in this room had Jesus right next to them, right near them, much like all of us every single Sunday morning, Jesus close enough to touch. But they experienced nothing. The whole thing was lost on them. While this woman, who never should have been there, was moved from just hearing about Jesus into having a living, tangible experience of him by choosing to give in response to what she felt she has been given. She gets it all and more. Basically, Jesus has given to her, she gives in return, and thus Jesus is able to give her far more. This cycle continuing, ever expanding, and that's the whole goal of salvation that Jesus wants for all of us. That a sinner hears of Jesus, goes to him, against all odds, risks believing, and then gives in response, heart, service, possessions, and thus moves on to continually even deeper experiences of the Lord. Jesus once said, give and it will be given to you. Pressed down, shaken together, spilling over will be placed in your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you receive. Notice his point, that he wants to just throw life abundant into our laps, but to truly get all this, all of it, all he has to offer, we have to be willing to give. This is crucial to the whole self-giving cord that is Christianity itself. As Jesus did for us on the cross, we have to learn to let go in order to take hold, you know? And this is what this unnamed woman in our text guides our journey into. As a model of the path of salvation, she thus also points us toward the path of giving. What do we learn? Well, as she challenges some of the long-standing entrenched rules of her day, I believe she also challenges some of the long-standing entrenched obstacles to giving. She presents to us three basic truths around which we need to start to base our lives every single day if we're ever to truly grow in giving that makes life in Jesus Christ really happen as he intends. Truth number one, I am blessed. Have you ever heard the story of the 9-year-old boy who resented having to do chores for his mother? One day after the boy cut the lawn and babysat for his little sister and cleaned up his room, he was told he had various other errands to do, and in his righteous indignation over the injustice of all these duties, he decided to give his mother a bill for his services rendered. The bill read as follows: mowing the lawn, $8. Babysitting, $5.75. Room cleaning, $5.25. Various errands, $2.60. Total due, $21.60. He then gave the bill to his mother. And his mom, being like all moms and having great wisdom, She accepted the bill graciously, saying nothing about it. The next morning, when the youngster came to the breakfast table, he found his bill on the plate, and next to it also, a second account payable for him. And it read, room and board since birth, $76,000. Nursing, medical, dental care since birth, $35,000. Taxi cab service and entertainment for 9 years, $10,000. Clothes and laundry for 9 years, $11,000. Total due $132,000. The boy looked at both bills and then rather quickly suggested, "Hey, Mom, why do you say we just call it even?" See, so often we're so hung up on the demands and struggles of our lives, we fail to notice the rich blessings that are being poured down upon us always. We're failing to realize all we have. This is where we begin, you know? As mentioned, Simon had invited Jesus to his home, but he didn't really see himself as being in need of anything that Jesus had to offer. As far as Simon could tell, Jesus hadn't given him anything. No, Simon was the one giving him a free meal, right? Thus, though so near everything Jesus did offer was lost to him, and it happens to a lot of good people every Sunday morning. In contrast, the woman knew her great need of the Lord, and even more from that great need, all that Jesus had offered to meet and entirely overcome that need, namely forgiveness, love, acceptance, new life. She was so focused on all that she had been given, how blessed she was in Jesus Christ, that it just automatically led her to give in response, and this life in abundance came rushing right back to her. And this is the first lesson for us all here, basically, that we need to get ourselves focused continually on all that we have been given. Giving begins by seeing oneself as blessed. When we don't see ourselves this way, giving just dies. And unfortunately, let's be honest, this tends to be the rule in our lives, you know? We all tend to spend most of our time looking only at what we need or don't have. Our whole culture continually feeding this idea, constantly telling us about new things that we lack. Well, let us make no mistake, we are all richly blessed always. On a most basic level, think of it this way. How many people here today make at least $2 a day? You have income, however it comes, Social Security, whatever, of at least $2 a day. Anybody? $730 minimum annual income. Well, know this. If you make at least $2 a day, you are part of the top 2% richest people in the world. Now, I realize it's often really hard to see this, but we have to break out of this trap of continually feeling so needy, victimized, and struggling, refusing the constant, easy pity party, instead insisting on knowing ourselves rightly as abundantly blessed. Consider the following. Like a lot of churches back in 2009, Cross Timbers Community Church in Argyle, Texas, witnessed a severe slump in the weekly offering because of the economic crisis. And the finance committee pared down the budget as best they could, but the church was still struggling. But as the church struggled, the church leaders were just as concerned about how the many different people of Cross Timbers were seeing hard times of their own through job losses and pay cuts and foreclosures. And so with this in mind, Pastor Toby Sloth did something a little different when the church took up an offering one Sunday morning in March of 2009. He didn't encourage people to put money in the plate. Instead, he encouraged people to take money out of the plate. He said, we're not going to take an offering today. We're going to give an offering. If you are in need, take out whatever you need. The end result? The church actually took in the largest offering in its history. People were more than ready to give to those in need all around them, ready to make sure that the plate was filled to overflowing as it was passed among those who were suffering. Everybody came believing they had nothing to give, but discovered that there was actually more than ever when they simply moved their hearts from holding to giving. The blessings overflow for all through giving. A life of giving begins in blessing, seeing always just how much God has given to us. Not just what we need, but what we have. And to make this happen this holiday week, I'd just like to put a challenge before all of us, just for this week ahead, to start into this path. Every day this week, at the start of every day, before you do anything else, before you go off into the events of the day planned, take a minute and list in your mind, or even better, write down on a piece of paper, 10 blessings in your life. Just list 10 blessings. You have to list 10 blessings before you can do anything else. Start every day there and just watch what happens in your life. Amen. Truth number one to base your life upon, in Jesus Christ, I'm blessed. Which leads us into truth number 2, I have something to give. Of course, the corollary to being blessed is then also the idea of having things to give, not simply being in need, but having some abundance. This is a basic biblical principle. Throughout the scriptures, it is made clear that God doesn't give to us just enough to meet our needs, but rather God always gives to us more than we need so we can have the resources to which to share and to give and to increase the blessing. Again, remember as Jesus said, good things pressed down, shaken together, pouring over will be given to you. In the text, notice that the woman, in response to her experience of Christ's love, immediately seeks to give to him. And notice that she has many things to give that Jesus needs that he has not been offered. The way the text plays out, you get the feeling that the gift she primarily wanted to give was the costly perfumed ointment that she had brought. But what she discovers is that even before she offers this, she gives other gifts as well. Her tears, her hair. She was probably embarrassed about this, but even this was a tremendous gift. Despite the well-established rules of Eastern hospitality and how a host is supposed to greet a guest, no one had washed Jesus' feet. No one had kissed him. No one had anointed him. They were supposed to, but no one had. But this woman did. She probably came into that room thinking that she had nothing to give, but she actually had tremendous gifts to offer. Something needed, something no one else would or could give. It reminds us, first of all, that at our lowest, seemingly most empty moments, we still always have something extra to give. That we have to break out of this constant lie of continually telling ourselves that we have nothing to offer. It's just not true. We always have something to give. I once knew this woman who was in the hospital for major surgery, and she was lying in the bed. She's completely unable to move. She's got tubes and wires coming out of her. She's unable to speak. She's got nothing to give, right? Wrong. You want to know what this good Christian woman did? She made it her mission to smile at every person who came into her room. Every doctor, every nurse, every orderly got a smile to lift up their difficult day. Everybody in the hospital loved her. People were going out of their way to go see her. Don't ever say, I've got nothing to give. Don't fall into that deadly trap. No matter how empty your life may seem, you have something to give, something somebody else needs. And from the second, remember, even more importantly, that what you have to give is something that only you can offer, And in this is life itself. I think about this woman weeping at Jesus' feet and drying them with her hair. She does something that I can never do. Oh, I can weep at Jesus' feet, but when it comes to drying them with her hair, the best I can do is blot. She has something to give that I don't. But then conversely, I have gifts that she doesn't. Let's say if as Jesus left his dinner party, his car wouldn't start. I might be able to do something about that. We each have things to give that are needed, that only we can give, somebody else desperately needs. We have to give them, for Jesus' sake and for our own. Christian author Doris Hare writes, many years ago, our daughter, who after graduating from college worked in Chicago, was going through some very tough times. Just newly married, her husband, our son-in-law, had been killed while serving overseas. And to add to that, she had just lost her job. Well, one day in the very depths of her depression, she was going around the city trying to find work when a very scruffy-looking panhandler stopped her asking for $1. Never one to cast judgment or to ignore a need, she faced a dilemma. She had absolutely no money. Looking straight in the man's eyes, she said, I'm so sorry, but I don't have anything. I don't even have a quarter to take the bus back home. She began to continue on her way when suddenly the man called out to her. Wait a minute, he said. And she turned around, and there was the panhandler searching his pockets. Finally, with a big smile on his face, he produced one very dirty, sticky-looking quarter. He said, here, I hope this will help. Tears overcame my daughter. She hugged the man, and he, crying in return, thanked her for the show of affection. Two people who didn't think they had anything actually had precisely what each other needed. They just kind of had to dig around for a while and then give it. There's an old saying about money that says, all money is tainted. Taint yours and it taint mine. It's God's given to us to meet our needs and to enable us to help meet the needs of others. Truth number 2 to base your life on, I have something to give which someone else desperately needs today. Which leads us into final truth number 3, I need to give. A great preacher once said, God made all of his creation to give. He made the sun, the moon, the stars, the clouds, the earth, the animals, the plants to give. He also designed his supreme creation, humanity, to give. But fallen humanity is the most reluctant giver in all of God's creation. Thus, it seems humanity struggles most in receiving the gift of life that is offered every day. Understand, God does not need our gifts, but you and I desperately need the experience of giving them. We desperately need the experience of giving. We need to give. The fundamental reality of our creation in the image of God, the ultimate giver. And this is our final point here today. In the end, the woman in our text today is driven by an overbearing need to give. Need to give something to Jesus in response to all that she feels she has received. She's not just giving because she thinks it would be a nice thing to do. No, as the text makes clear, by her total disregard for everything else around her, she has to give. It's not optional for her, and she knows this. And in this, she demonstrates that she has grasped a crucial principle that everyone else in the room has failed to discover. That living is giving. It is not something optional that we can take or leave. Devote ourselves to at whim whenever we have some spare time or spare possessions. No. It is part and parcel of what it means to be alive. It is as important as breathing or eating. We need to give to be truly alive. And this points us to the final issue we need to be combating in our lives, the final falsehood we so often fall into that keeps us from real life, namely, this idea that giving is something I can take or leave, add or subtract from my life as it suits me. As if, if I have some extra money, some free time, if there's some issue that interests me. Instead, every day, as you start your day, don't just think about what you need to accomplish, what you need to get, what you need to do. Think more about what you need to give. And invite God to direct you to some way to accomplish this. And trust me, life abundant will be given right back to you. In closing, consider the following true story. The headline of the Edwardsville Intelligencer read simply, "Youngster sees the bigger picture." Indeed, Wyatt Erber, an 8-year-old from Edwardsville, Illinois, has put the city on the map with a heart-grabbing act of generosity. Wyatt won a scavenger hunt sponsored by the local First Cloverleaf Bank and donated his $1,000 prize to the family of neighbor Kara Keelty, a 2-year-old who was battling leukemia. Noelle Erber, Wyatt's mom, told ABC News, "He was really aware of what cancer is. When he found out Kara had cancer, his heart sank." Bank spokeswoman Rachel Case said to the Post-Dispatch about Wyatt surrendering his prize for Kara, "I don't know any 8-year-olds who would do this. In fact, I don't know any 80-year-olds who would do it." Tricia Keelty, Kara's mom, recalled to the newspaper a phone call she received from Wyatt a few weeks ago. He said, "How much chemo will $1,000 buy for Kara?" I'm completely floored by this. To step up and donate his winnings, it's crazy. To make Wyatt's charity even sweeter, a group called Edwardsville Neighbors in Need has matched his donation. In May, Kara was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which has a cure rate of about 90%. Kara's progress has been very positive so far, her mother said, but she has 2.5 more years of treatments to go. When asked about why he did this, Wyatt responded simply, "Everyone says this is something so amazing, but it really isn't. I couldn't stand to have the money and know that little Kara was in trouble. I didn't give to be a hero. I gave because I had to. I gave because I had to." A poet once offered these words, "I gave then to him all the things that I valued so, until I stood there empty-handed, every glittering thing did go. And I walked earth's lonely highways in my rags and poverty, till I heard his voice entreating, 'Lift your empty hands to me.' Empty hands I lifted to him, and he filled them with a store of his transcendent riches, till my hands could hold no more. And at last I comprehended, with my mind so slow and dull, that God could not pour his riches into hands already full." God cannot pour his riches into hands that are already full. Choose the path of extravagant generosity that produces the abundant life God intends. Remind yourself each and every day, I am blessed, I have a gift, and I need to give. At this time, in gratitude for all that God has given us, let us prepare to commit ourselves to a life of giving in return. Would the members of the Stewardship Committee please come forward for the presentation and consecration of our congregation's 2016 pledges. Prayer of consecration found on the second page of the bulletin. Let us come to God in prayer. Brothers and sisters in Christ, today we have gathered to call to mind the overwhelming abundance of God's riches poured out upon us through faith. St. John surrounds us with a community of love and care, nurture and growth.
St. John reaches outside its walls to transform our communities beyond.
In humble gratitude for all that we have received, we seek to answer giving with giving.
Lord God, source of every good gift, everything we have, and all that we are, comes from you. Help us to be grateful and responsible.
May we be ever mindful that all we have been given is yours, entrusted to us not as a possession, but as an opportunity and a calling, a means by which we share in your saving work.
Lord, we commit ourselves to be good stewards of all that we have received. Help us to make stewardship a way of life.
In this spirit, please accept these pledges that we dedicate this day.
Use them to your glory, to be the instruments of your work in this world.
Bless these and all our commitments to you, that we might not only fulfill our vows, but surpass them, continually seeking to grow in our devotion, thus working wonders yet unimagined in the days ahead.
Lord, use us in your service. Encourage us to see that we are all ministers of all in the body of Christ.
In everything we do, may we be a blessing to others as we live out your call. And in all, might we be a truly giving people, generous with our time, talents, and treasure.
That through our offerings of self and substance, all people everywhere can come to know your self-giving love. Through Christ Jesus our Savior, in whose name we pray and live. Amen.
Would you please turn to our closing hymn number 102, Now Thank We All Our God, and would you please stand?